So in this battle of sex and survival, you have a supposed fruit fight. Yeah, a fruit fight that goes on between apples and oranges. You have a fruit fight that's going on between apples and oranges. What do I mean by this? Associate the designated chakra with the color of the fruit. You understand? The apple is the root. That's the root. The survival, the need to feed, the gatherer, the forager. And then next up, you have the sacral, which is orange. The orange pedaling of a lotus is how it's to be meditated on. And you're meditating on the backside of these particular chakras, all the chakras really, but particularly the sacral is the one you want to, also the root too. But for the orange, the sacral is the reproductive chakra. This is the perpetuation of the human species. And this is also for the sake of physical pleasure. So these two things are connected too. The physical satisfaction and reproduction are both housed in the sacral chakra. Why I'm mentioning this is that these are the underlying subconscious subject matters that are being used as artillery in this fruit fight for the energy centers that are directly connected to the increasing of a particular human species or demographic or group. If you can mess with their sex and their survival, you can either make or break an entire race or an entire people. So you have sex being sold through the root chakra. So the root is being placed in the area of consumerism, thereby making consumerism the foundation or a fabric of a particular society, that being the alleged Western world. In the spirit of consumerism, it being connected to the selling of sex, using sex to sell the product. So you have the fruit fight. You got the oranges and the apples and the oranges. When a product is being sold, the idea is to convince the consumer that they need this product. So that digs into the root energy for survival. But also, if it's being advertised in a commercial way, you'll have the sexual innuendos and that kind of energy to use that as a catalyst to sell this alchemical equation to drive a human being, to implant triggers inside of their psyche to be able to control their drives remotely, remote control through advertisement. If the person's mind is unguarded, if their root and their sacral chakras are at war, they'll be pulled apart by consumerism and survival. And this will make them feel like they are no longer fit to be a part of the Darwinistic sequence of the perpetuation of their family line. If a person feels like they're unfit for survival and unfit for a mate, that's the root in the sacral chakras being completely cut off. You can fall into something like this in areas of celibacy if you don't understand transmutation very well. You can shut off your sacral chakra entirely by accident, just by abstaining. So you have to maintain that citrus energy, which is derivative of the entity known as Citri, which is basically a god of irresistibility and charm and sexual desire and love interest. A lot of people on the left-hand path use Citri for love spells, the entity known as Citri. It could be considered, I think, a demon. I believe that's how they have Citri classified. I think as a demon. And that deals with like the Citra aura and things like that. And then you get back into the black chakra. But that's more cerebral, but more about the struggle that is directly connected to the physical drive. You have those two down at the bottom. You got the root. You have so the root is where what? The dragon rises. Apple is short for Apollyon, the angel of the bottomless pit, the one who releases the dragon. The apple is where the dragon is coiled. And that's where the energy of the dragon is uncoiled and released from to sprout out from the crown to the opening of the head, from the root up to the head. So the root chakra has to be conquered. So don't fall for consumerism. Make sure that you're making purchases based on needs, and make sure that your spending that is based on wants is pre-planned. And you'll find yourself getting a handle and controlling the apple, the root chakra. And then when you deal with the orange, when you deal with the citrus, this is what? Vitamin C. And C sounds like C. The sacral chakra can be used to help you to see. To see into what? To see into people's desires, to make you more of an empath towards people's energy. That's coming from a sacral space. You'll see this drive to be needed, this drive to be accepted. These things are coming from the sacral center too. The need to belong, to be a part of something, to want to be a contributor to society. Yes, this orange is bleeding over into the red. You do have the survival being directly connected to wanting to further your people. You're grinding hard at your job, working hard at your job because you want to take care of your kids. You want to take care of what you reproduced in the sacral chakra. You want to be able to financially support it with your root energy. This is correct. That's how you're supposed to do it. That's exactly how you're supposed to do it. If you confuse these two, you'll end up in that sea of consumerism energy, thereby desire without aim. You'll be pulled by advertisements, pulled by feeds. Don't underestimate artificial intelligence. Everything that you think, mention, utter is all collected and you know what I mean? Synthesized and synchronized into patterns that none of us can escape from, that we're all a part of. But what you want to do is make sure that you monitor your conversation. Be your own surveillance. First line of surveillance, of security. Inside of your mind, you have to monitor what you're going to say or produce in advance. Because these things, again, will affect your sacral and your root chances. It will affect whether you're, and this doesn't mean that if you have no physical children that your sacral chakra is not operating. The sacral chakra is all about a fruitful type of thing. So you could be someone who leads a youth group if you don't have children. You could be someone who adopts and ends up with children. And you would be operating out of the sacral space because this would have everything to do with the sense of community and personal connectivity from human to human. In the case where humans are absent, this is where you have people with pets. When they don't, or if they don't have a partner. Even in full families, you'll still have the pet. So the connectivity in the sacral chakra and the citrus and the vitamin C is very prevalent. That's the main one they say you use to fight off the cold. To fight off the cold versus the warm, to fight off the cold nature, the cold-hearted, to fight off the bitterness, the resentment, to fight off the cold with vitamin C, with citrus, with the sacral chakra. You see, when they apply a word like sex to the sacral chakra is not just pertaining to the physical interaction between between humans. It's not talking about intercourse only. It's also talking about gender and its expression. And what I mean by that is to give and to receive. The giving part, the projecting, the putting forth, the acting, that's the masculine part. The receiving, the understanding of it, that's the receptive, the female part. Reconciling these things in the citri energy, which is that need to bond. The reason why we don't need a fruit fight between apples and oranges, between the root chakra and the sacral, between sex and survival, is because when both are put in their proper perspective, these two things will automatically further the species along. If you're focused on expansion of your family line, the desire to provide the means for it will naturally come along with that. If you're just a person who makes money, earns wealth, earns riches, collects wealth enough to store for generations, the desire for the sacral will start spinning, because the interconnectivity of the human soul will naturally desire to share the wealth. What you get with a person who hoards it and dies with a rich bank account and a poor soul is them trying to resist the sharing. Christ said, I'm the rose of Sharon. You rise by sharing. And according to the late Tupac, that rising can come even smooth through the concrete. But every rose has its thorns. So your rise can't be yanked or manipulated. Nobody's going to snatch you up. You're going to rise up. Nobody's going to pull you or yank you up. You're going to rise up because you have the root and the sacral chakras in their proper place. You're not fighting the fruit. You're not throwing the apples at the oranges and the oranges at the apples. You're not trying to plant both seeds in the same patch. You're giving the apple tree space to grow, the orange tree space to grow. You're giving each of them their vineyard. They're each fenced off. They each have their orchard. They each have their harvesters, their gleaners. They each have their particular treatments. But if you go in autopilot and live more of like a drone existence, if after your 9 to 5, you just, shut down mentally. And if you have anything playing like the radio or the TV or anything like that, anything, your phone, these advertisements and all things that's coming at you will be aiming for these two chakras in particular. Now, we could get into the other ones with the battle for the heart, the voice, the mind, and the inspiration. We'll get there, but let's just start with these bottom two. And there's nothing wrong with going over this chakra system over and over and over, because we want to make it applicable to your everyday life. Just understand that your need to be productive, which is also sacral, and your need to survive, which is root, should go hand in hand. So again, this is Super T Sigma with Sigma Programming. I thank you for your time and attention. Over here, reaching is teaching. Continue to vibrate high, people. Peace.